Hi, I'm Micah, and I'm going to show you how to make a chocolate torte. And depending on where you are in the world, a torte can be so many different things. This chocolate torte is of the flourless torte variety, meaning it's a gluten-free dessert that is an airy, rich chocolate cake that depends on the structure of chocolate itself for the shape, the flavor, and the taste of the cake as a whole. So let's get started. To make the base of this cake, we have to start by making a chocolate ganache. And so what we're about to do is melt chocolate and butter together with a little instant espresso powder to make a ganache that we will later incorporate into whipped eggs and sugar. You can do this in the microwave by using a microwave at 30% power and just microwaving the following 3 ingredients in 30-second intervals until it's fully melted. I'm gonna do it over a double boiler. In this pot, I have 1 inch of water that I'm going to bring to a boil. And into the pot, I'm going to position a bowl that I'm going to then add my 12 ounces of chocolate, my 8 tablespoons of butter, and my 1 teaspoon of instant espresso powder, so that the steam that's coming off from the water gently warms the bowl that these ingredients are in, allowing everything to melt and become smooth and homogeneous without the chocolate seizing up and burning. So I'm gonna get this water boiling, and I'm going to combine the other 3 ingredients into a bowl right now. All right, in this bowl, I'm going to combine my 12 ounces of dark chocolate. This is 60% cacao, which means it's a pretty bitter chocolate, and that's exactly what you want in this cake. This is not the time to use cheap chocolate. There aren't many ingredients in this cake, and the main flavor in the cake comes from the quality of the chocolate that you use. So you want to use the best that you can find. To this, I'm going to add 8 tablespoons of room temperature butter, and I'm going to add 1 full teaspoon of instant espresso powder. What this does, you'll find in a lot of chocolate desserts that coffee or espresso powder is used. You don't taste it when you taste the dessert. It doesn't taste like coffee. What does happen is the coffee complements the chocolate flavor and enhances it, making it more present in the tongue and more robust and full in flavor. So this, more than anything, is just to make the chocolate cake all the more chocolatey. Okay, with these ingredients in this bowl, I'm going to put it on top of my boiling water and gently stir it until everything is melted. My ganache is right here and it is fully melted. And now I'm going to set it to the side just to let it cool off a little bit while we prepare the next portion of the recipe. So the ganache right here, and into my stand mixer, I'm going to combine 3 ingredients. 6 whole eggs, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. The eggs are what's going to make this cake lift. As it bakes, all of the air that's caught into this network of egg white proteins and sugar are going to expand and give the cake a really nice rise and eventually give each slice a really airy and delicate texture. So we have to whip this until these eggs have expanded dramatically. We're talking like quadrupling in volume. So we're gonna whip these on medium-high for about 6 minutes, and you'll notice that at first, the sugar is still going to be separated from the eggs, but it will dissolve. And as it dissolves and as more air is whipped in, the mixture will expand and expand and expand until it's more than tripled in size. So let's get going. That 6 minutes has done 2 things. It's allowed these eggs to whip and get enough air in them, but it's also allowed our chocolate ganache to cool off a little bit. So when the 2 come together, like we're about to do, everything's at the right temperature and the right consistency to do so. We're going to transfer gently our egg mixture into this bowl. And you don't want to pour it from a great height, because if you do, you'll lose some of the air that you've worked so hard to incorporate into the eggs. So just gently pour it into this bowl. Let's take the chocolate ganache and add about half of the chocolate ganache to the egg mixture. And with your spatula or spoon, just gently stir to incorporate the chocolate into this mixture. The reason you don't want to be aggressive is because all of that air that you've whipped into it, as I mentioned earlier, is essential to getting that rise and that fluffy, airy texture in your torte. Do some scooping motions from the bottom of the bowl with your spatula to make sure that any of that chocolate that is settled at the bottom is actually being incorporated. Now this has been incorporated, I'm going to add the rest of my chocolate ganache and just gently fold it until it's completely combined. You'll notice the texture of the batter changing pretty dramatically once the eggs incorporate with the chocolate. It becomes really homogeneous and fluid, but also it has a stickiness and a pull to it that comes from the egg and the sugar mixture. All right, so we're gonna set this aside, and now in our stand mixer, I'm going to whip a half a cup of heavy cream just until it has medium peaks, and we're gonna fold that into this mixture as well. Here's my half a cup of cream, and then I'm just gonna whip it on medium high. It'll only take about 2 minutes. My whipped cream's finished whipping, and you can see it's pretty soft, but still airy enough to hold its shape. And I'm going to add this, all of it, to my chocolate mixture. And again, I'm just gonna gently fold this in until there are no more streaks of white or lightened whipped cream, but everything is the same color. Now it's time to line our 9-inch springform pan with parchment paper, which is honestly one of my favorite things to do because I think it's kind of fun. I'm gonna show you a trick for how to do it really well. The first thing you wanna do is grease the inside of your springform pan with some butter. This just makes sure that the edges of the cake don't cling to the pan and it stays uniform and uncracked. Simply take a piece of parchment paper and set it on top of the bottom circle of the springform pan, like so. Take the outer ring of the springform pan and press it so that it surrounds the inner circle, and then simply close the pan. The product is a fully lined bottom springform that is really easy to remove, and you don't have to hassle with trying to fight and finagle the parchment piece inside. I'm just gonna take a pair of scissors and cut around this edge so that there isn't a ton of overhang, and then I'm ready to fill it. Now that my pan is prepared, all you need to do is pour in your batter gently. You don't want to do it from a tall height because again, you've worked so hard to work air into this mixture, and by doing that, you deflate the batter a little bit. So just gently and close to the pan, allow the batter to just pour out. Smooth out the surface. And my oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And this is gonna take about 45 minutes to bake. The way you know it's done, if you just tap or slightly jiggle the side of the pan, rather than seeing the center of the batter jiggle separately from the rest, you'll notice that it won't really jiggle at all. The whole cake will move with the pan. Similarly, you can take a toothpick and just insert it into the center of the cake, and it should come out clean with maybe a few moist crumbs, but certainly no batter. So this is going in my 350 degree oven, and I will see you in a few minutes. My chocolate torte is completely cool. I took it out of the oven about an hour ago, and I ran a knife around the perimeter of the pan before releasing the springform. You then can use the parchment paper circle that's underneath the cake to help lift it out onto a serving plate. And you'll notice that the surface has some cracks, but it's not broken all the way through. That's the one thing you want to avoid, and that's why we grease the side of the pan. Because if you don't grease the side of the pan and you open the springform, the cake is prone to break all the way through. So now I have my cake here, and you'll have noticed when you pulled it out of the oven that it was much taller, and it falls as it rests, which is a good thing. That adds to the density and the chocolatiness of the cake. It's not dissimilar to a souffle, actually. So if you've never made a souffle before, congratulations. You just made something very similar. So I have a fine wire mesh strainer here, and I have some unsweetened cocoa powder, and I'm just gonna dust the surface with cocoa powder. And I have some freshly whipped cream right here that I've sweetened with just a little bit of powdered sugar. This chocolate torte is not very sweet. It's a pretty bittersweet and deep chocolatey flavor. And so a little sweetened whipped cream is really nice. Another nice touch is something bright and acidic, like fresh raspberries or blueberries. And if you want an added touch of sweetness, you could use maybe some raspberry jam. or cherry preserves or something that would go really well with chocolate. All right, so now to take my first bite. The structure of the torte dissolves in your mouth. It melts. It's phenomenal. And with the whipped cream, adding a cool and sweet and almost instantly liquid component to it as it melts in your mouth, it's exceptional. It's really exceptional. Some desserts that you make for other people when you're hosting, you have to figure out which dessert is right for which crowd. And this is the recipe I pull out when I want to impress, because it's elegant, it's simple to make, and it looks stunning. And you can riff on it with a bunch of different sweet toppings and fruits. It's just a good recipe to have and to keep. If you've enjoyed what you've seen today, I encourage you to subscribe to the Southern Living YouTube channel, where you'll find other recipes and videos like this one that you're bound to enjoy. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.